Welcome to episode number 67 of the Between Two Brands podcast. I, of course, am your host, Bill Petrie, and as always, I'm happy you're here with me. I think we've got a good show. But would I ever tell you if I thought it was a crappy show? The answer is no. So take my word for it. But before we get rolling, let's go ahead and pay the rent, shall we? Hey, in 2026, your clients are looking for more than just a product with their logo on it. They're looking for rock solid merchandise solutions that are more than just innovative. They're going to be used for months and years to come. Now, let me introduce you, or maybe in a few cases, reintroduce you to our pals over at Coaster Stone. They are the original manufacturer of the absorbent stone coaster, and they have unmatched durability, quality, and absolutely stunningly gorgeous edge-to-edge decorating that allows your creative designs to come to life in vibrant, full-color detail. Now, since 1983, Coaster Stone has set the standard when it comes to delivering a retail-inspired experience to any client function. How about instead of boring and plain packaging, how about options that are customizable? Coaster Stone delivers value far beyond the product itself. And also, did you know that they manufacture their pin-back buttons right here in the USA? That's right, buttons galore right here in the United States. They do, and they are the most fun, ideal, and cost-effective pieces of branded merchandise around. Now, with that combination of stone-cold quality, striking decoration, cost per impression, and honestly unmatched value, David Glenn and his team are ready to help you make a rock-solid impression with your clients. Email them at promo@coasterstone.com to start your next product. How about your product project today? It's hard to say that 4 times fast. All right. So as I was preparing for the opening shot, I was thinking about the whole America 250 thing. Boy, that is hurtling towards us in a hot hurry. On July 4th of this year, we will celebrate America's 250th birthday. I don't remember the word for it. I remember the 200th birthday, or the 150th. 150th is a sesquicentennial. And the only reason I know that is because I lived in Texas, where I grew up, when Texas turned 150. But I don't remember what the name for America 250 is. We'll just call it America 250, okay? But suppliers are ramping up domestic production of their merchandise to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our still very great country. Now, many are really being mindful, though, of the reputational risk of merch made overseas bearing the America 250 logo. Let's face it, there's a lot of suppliers that have the license. We're going to get into that in just a second. But there's a lot of people who are like, I don't know if I want to put an America 250 logo, the official one, or the Freedom 250 logo on product that's not made in the United States. I think that's smart, by the way. Now, here's the other thing. Licensing for that is optional. But accurate labeling is critical, because I talked about this a couple podcasts ago. Made in the USA claims absolutely must meet Federal Trade Commission standards. Now, many brands I did a little research, which I don't normally do, but I actually did some research, and a lot of brands are resisting using the official America 250 logo for a couple reasons. One, it's expensive. You have to pay a pretty big percentage, around 10% on the cost of the logo and the product to use that America 250 logo. The one I thought that was very interesting, and this is not a political statement, what I believe or what I don't believe, but there are companies that are very concerned that the America 250 celebration has been highly politicized by the current Trump administration, and they feel it's very risky to align closely with either political party. And as just your general American who's just fed up with all the bullshit going on, period, on both sides, I can totally get that. I don't know if I'd want to align on one side or the other at this point. I think it's better to be, as Derek Smalls once said in Spinal Tap, one is fire, one is ice. I think I'd rather be just rather be lukewarm water. And that's kind of where I think a lot of people are sitting right now. And the third is the phrases America 250, USA 250, Freedom 250. Those are public domain. So businesses absolutely can reference America 250 or Freedom 250 or whatever, create their own logo for it, And they can do so without paying licensing fees if they want to avoid the official logo. And honestly, I think that's the trend more people are going to. Now, I know, like I said, several suppliers in our industry have the official license for the America 250 logo. Hit Promotional Products comes to mind. They absolutely have that. And I think that's great because there are people, distributors and end user companies that want that. But I also love the fact that you can just reference America 250, come up with your own logo, and it doesn't cost you a thing. So, what I wanted to ask everybody, and this is where I absolutely love to hear in the comments, especially from you distributors, are you seeing an influx of demand for America 250 merchandise from your clients? Number two, are you making sure that if you are producing that merchandise from that is American made? Do you feel like you might be hypocritical if you have a product made in China but it has an America 250 logo on it? And the third is, do they want the official logo or would they be willing to do something a little different? I think it's interesting as we approach this landmark anniversary for our nation, and it's a big birthday, right? 250 years. That's fantastic. But I just want to look at it through the merchandise lens. And I'd love your help on that. So drop a comment if you're so inclined. I'd love to hear from you. All right, before we get to my guest, let's go ahead and pay one more final bill, shall we? Hey, do you know what season it is? That's right. It is business valuation season. Now, perhaps you don't know what your company's worth. Maybe it's been more than a few years since your last valuation and you want to see if your company is increasing in value. Heck, you might want to see if it's even time to sell your company. Regardless of the reason, Jamie Watson and her team over at Certified Marketing Consultants have extensive experience in the world of branded merchandise and the theoretical knowledge necessary to provide a fact-based valuation of your business. Simply email them at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential discussion today. All right, let's go ahead and bring on our guest. Hey, my first, my only guest today. So, a favorite of mine, return guest, if you will, since late 2021. He's overseen the rapid growth of PPAI Media and was recently promoted to Senior Director of Media, Research, and Public Affairs. It's a mouthful. He's been a journalist since the age of 15, first working in sports, reporting for DallasCowboys.com. Probably don't need to belabor the point, but that is the football team's website. Before transitioning to business media. Prior to PPAI, he served as the editor-in-chief of Success Magazine. Please join me in welcoming the lovely, the talented, the kind, Josh Ellis. Josh, thanks for being a repeat offender.
Oh, you're welcome, Bill. I'm nice to be here. No, it's a pleasure. It's always an honor whenever anyone wants to talk to me, but especially you, Bill.
Well, that is way too kind. So this new role, I want to ask about the new role. How does it differ from the role you were doing before? And
Well,
congratulations too, by the way.
thank you. I appreciate it. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of catching up on what my role naturally evolved to over the last 4.5 years. My original job description, as it was envisioned, was very focused on, you know, PPAI magazine, which was PPB at the time, and Newslink and things like that.
Right.
Just I got a lot of opportunities from PPAI leadership along the way and the board, to grow the impact of what we were doing on the media side. That led to research, and over time that led to public affairs and a good bit of communications work. And so with one of the natural parts of PPAI, with new board members coming on every year, and we have had some new leadership along the way.
Yeah.
The vision and needs change over time. And so with our new mission and vision, to really speak outwardly about the industry, it was deemed time to kind of turn some of my direction in that way, with some media relations and the advocacy that my team had already been working on, with legislative affairs, that sort of thing. So it's kind of a catch up, but as part of what we're working on the media team now is much more outwardly focused.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of a encapsulation of that.
And you just referenced, you've worked for two different CEOs at PPI. You worked for Dale Denham, and then you work now for Drew Holmgreen.
And an interim, that's three.
Oh, that's right. Well, and that rude of me to forget Dawn. So but just leave her out of it since she was interim. What are the similarities and differences you see in the leadership styles?
Um, so I would say both. So Dale perhaps more direct, Drew more leading by vision and emotion.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that their focus and intention for what they were trying to get accomplished was different, and maybe that's defined in part by the board and what their mission and vision projects called for. But um, under my first 2.5, 3 years at PPAI, we were much more thoughtful about advancing the industry itself, like
Yeah.
improving the processes, encouraging the improvement of processes for within our members.
Yeah.
And I think some of that work has been done, and maybe it's natural. Maybe we helped along the way. I hope so. But now it's much more. We're seeing the association as a marketing association where we are speaking the good word and working to elevate the industry and its standing in the minds of people in the larger marketing, branding, advertising, HR communities to understand the power of merch
Yeah.
and what it can
Now,
mean for their brands.
and I love that answer because I ask as an outsider, right? I knew Dale well, and Dale and certain and a lot of what you're talking about is circumstantial too. What Dale inherited in COVID, that was almost a crisis management, at least for the first little bit. And then obviously Drew coming in has a very different perspective. And so from an outsider's point of view, I always wonder, wow, it has to be a radically different approach from an employee perspective. How do you feel Drew's leadership has changed in the 1 year he's been CEO?
So, his first year, he's totally new to the industry, right? So
Right.
it's only natural that his first year he was going to spend a lot of time learning it, being on the road, meeting members, and just absorbing everything he could along the way. He came in obviously with certain ideals or convictions that he worked to put into place in the organization in terms of what our structure would be or where we want to prioritize this or that, where maybe we need to catch up. And we're in year two now, and he's much more inwardly focused. One of
Yeah.
the foundational elements of our new strategic plan is organizational excellence, and that's really just getting our own house in order in some ways. There's a lot more of a I would say corporate approach to the way the association is run these days, and that's great for long-term stability and succession planning. People in any organization do come and go, and so being able to not lose pace or lose track when you have a knowledge leader that departs for one reason or another, and be able to keep that advancement has something that is something that he's been focused on. And really it's been the last 6 months or so since the strategic plan was rolled out internally.
Right.
It's been a big focus to get the team aligned to make sure that we're
Sure.
all seeing the implications of the new plan, the new mission and vision, and what that can mean for our roles.
Yeah, I love that when Drew shared it in several meetings. I was in several committee meetings. I was in Las Vegas at Expo. He was very enthusiastic about it, and it's an adventurous plan in terms of accomplishment perspective. But I'm excited for it. Let me ask you this. And one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on here. So PPAI recent rolled out a thing called PPAI Media Expert Voices, and I'm quoting here from the email I received. So this is not my words. It is a quote, selective paid thought leadership program designed for respected leaders in the promotional products industry. What was the idea behind that?
I'll take you back a couple of years.
Oh, we're
So
going we're going back through time, kids.
Um, yeah, so we have long known on the media team that our perspective is much different than our members. We report on news in the industry and trends and things like that, but it's secondhand. We're not living in the businesses, and so I'm always basically any conversation I have with a member, I'm struck by like, oh, they're seeing this totally different than we are, because they're in it, right? And so they have knowledge and insights that we don't have. So
Sure.
community content, community generated content, has been a part of our overall picture since before I even got to PPAI, right? About the, let's see, spring of 2023, we rolled out a select group of industry insiders, call them, who we offered the opportunity to write opinion and advice columns.
Hmm.
We called it voices.
Yep.
Um, and and by and large, they were very unreliable. Uh, these are working people who are busy, and though
Sure.
it sounded like a great idea when they agreed to do it, like it turned out that they couldn't be depended on to turn the content in on time, and that's fine. We weren't paying them anything, and they had no business
And they treated it
making
like the
making
non-paying
us,
job that it
yes,
was.
making us their first priority. So the idea here was to get skin in the game so that
Hmm.
we knew that there would be quality content coming in from respected thought leaders in the industry. We're not, yes, it's paid. We're upfront about that. If you go to ppai.org/authors, where the expert voices are listed,
Right.
like it's
Right.
right there. This is fee based. But we wouldn't open it up to, Braxlin from the class of 2025,
Right.
who just got his TAS. It's for, as your email noted, it's for a select group of thought leaders, people that have a lot of insights to share with their fellow colleagues in the industry, and that's very much the idea, is um, to focus it, to deliver the most value to the members as a whole.
Yeah. So I have a different opinion. I'm sure you're shocked. Because I feel there's a perceived, because it runs through PPAI media, not through marketing, it runs through media. To me, there's a perceived conflict of interest there. And I want to talk about that because I reserve the right to be wrong. I don't know it all. So this is just my thought until I really, I have not talked deeply about this. But there's, from my perspective, a little bit of a perceived conflict of interest because there is that charge. To me, if you are paying people that, and not that I'm advocating paying people for content, I'm just saying, but if you want people to have skin in the game, you pay them, they will do that. Promo Corner is a great example. They pay people in the industry for their content. By having people pay PPAI, though, it feels, I don't know, for lack of a better term, and I don't want to get technical, it feels icky to me because I feel like it undermines PPAI media's credibility and objectivity. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Okay, cool. Great
Pound the
discussion.
table. Pound the
Great
table.
discussion.
It's ultimately, I see it no differently than any advertisement that we run in any of our content. When you open Newslink, you're exposed to 4 or 5 ads twice a week, right?
Right.
We have other sponsored content that is
Sure.
strictly about the company. This, frankly, is more objective and less salesy. In fact, it's an editorial standard of the program that, like, there can be no CTA. You're not allowed to make direct appeals to your customers. It's purely thought leadership. And so,
Okay.
if in the process somebody is so impressed by what you have to say that you gain a
Sure.
customer, that's great.
Right.
Good for you. That's not the point of it. And we edit out, like, the direct appeals for business.
Yeah.
And it's as opposed to us hand selecting and sending out invites, which we were doing 3 years ago. I think it's a more democratic process.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
to
I'm not sure I agree, but I do appreciate the honest perspective. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll let you have the last word, but I do think so. If I accept everything you're saying at face value, and I do, but I do think there's a difference between a giant banner ad That's clearly an advertisement and somebody writing an article under the guise of PPAI as so it feels like it's almost endorsed by the association. So in my mind, at the very least, it creates some confusion. But again, maybe that's just me.
We do withhold the final editorial judgment on it, right?
Okay,
So
that's good to know.
we would not print anything that we thought was, defaming to another member
Right,
or bad bad advice for the industry as a whole. And maybe
right,
some of those lines can be debatable. But it's we take it as seriously as we do anything that our editorial staff is
right,
writing.
right. I totally get that. So you and I are headed to lead here in a
Hmm.
couple weeks.
Hmm.
When this episode drops, we'll have already gone through lead. We'll have been in DC and all that. And I think it is absolutely my favorite event of the year from PPAI. I think it's the most important thing PPAI does, or certainly one of the top three. But I wanted to get your opinion. I am nervous going there this year, not because I feel like something horrible is going to happen while we're there. I just wonder if our talks with elected officials and the staff about um, advocating for small businesses through the lens of branded merchandise, if that's going to fall on deaf ears with everything that's going on in the world right now, I want to know how you feel walking into it.
Yeah, I've been to lead before, right? I think
Yeah.
you and I maybe were in some of the same meetings.
Yep. Absolutely.
I am every time I get to go, I'm overwhelmed with a feeling how rewarding it is, like
Absolutely.
doing a patriotic duty of going there and speaking up, right? And so regardless of what action we may be able to create this year,
Mm,
it feels good and it's important that we go. The
absolutely.
consistency of the messaging, and this year we had another in-person advocacy event in February with some of the
Right.
largest employers in the industry, Echo. That consistency and lead is an event in April, but we follow it up with communications with those offices throughout the year. The consistency of the messaging is really important. That's
Yeah.
everything that we hear from our lobbying partners is like drive it home often.
Yep.
Um, we're in a midterm election year.
Hmm.
There is, as we're recording this last night, we have a ceasefire in the
A,
military operation in
a,
Iran. And
a,
when this publishes, I don't know what's going to be
yeah,
happening. Hopefully, it does publish.
a ceasefire that expires on lead day, by the way.
Yeah. So obviously there are a lot of considerations in Washington
Yeah.
D.C. No, but none of the offices that we're going to wake up that are going to wake up that morning thinking like, hell yeah, the merch people are going to be here. Let's
Well,
see what we
don't
let's
sell
see.
us as an industry short. They might be like, man, I cannot wait for Ellis and Petrie to come back. Man, are
But
they getting the band back together or what?
but um, as you say, like we're there advocating for small businesses, and we're a
Yep.
reminder to them
Yeah.
of who their constituents are
Yeah.
and the variety of work that they do and how we all impact the economy. And so
Yeah.
it's a piece of the larger advocacy puzzle that we try and put together all the time.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, like I said, it's my favorite event. Think I've only missed 1 year out of the last 10. So I'm excited to go there. Speaking of speaking, to be the redundant man of redundancy,
Mhm.
you've been doing a lot more speaking recently at regionals. You and I are both going to be at Rupt Summer Camp
Mhm.
in June. Why is your speaking picked up so much, and what are your goals when you do go speak in front of people?
My goals is number one is to survive. I am a reluctant speaker. I do get a great feeling when it's over with.
Yeah.
My fear going in every time is that I'm going to rush through everything I have to say and be looking up with 35 minutes on the clock and just hoping that there are questions. But what I enjoy about it, one, finishing, two, is you learn something. I tend to not give the same presentation multiple times. You speak more than I do, Bill. So you probably have opportunities to kind of repackage this one or that one.
Mm.
I feel like I end up doing a new presentation each time. And
Yeah.
so when you do that, you got to kind of deep dive the material to get a better understanding. And for the most part, I'm pulling on stuff that we've our research has unveiled over time, or trends that we found. And so I'm
Right.
know of it. But
Mm.
even if it was from, a data point that came 3 or 4 months ago, like going back to revisit and having it top of mind is uh, really good for just my ability to be locked in on what good looks like in the job. So I, you know, I I think it's a learning experience every time, and you get better every time.
Yeah.
There have been times when I was speaking where, you connect with just a couple people in the audience who are very polite nodders, and you're like, hell yeah, I'm doing this, and feel good about it along the way. But I do get nervous up there. Who doesn't?
Well, yeah, I'm about to say I've actually scaled back a lot of my speaking. I mean, there was years where I would speak, 5 or 6 regionals. I'd speak at Expo. I'd speak at a couple ASI shows. I've really scaled back, for a couple of reasons. One, it is exhausting. It's tiring to do that stuff. And what you were saying is, Bill, you speak a lot. You probably have an opportunity to repackage. And there's been times I do that. These days, it's always new. It's always new. And I only prepare about 80%, maybe 70% of what I'm going to say, because if I know it cold 100%, I'm bored giving the presentation. So I like that nervousness that I don't know everything that's in the presentation. Like, oh shit, I forgot that's here. That keeps me engaged, and I think it helps with audience engagement too. That I know enough to get through it, no problem. Close my eyes, but that 25 to 30% element of danger, that gets me excited. And by the way, everybody gets nervous before they speak. Every time I
Yeah.
get up to speak, every single time, I think, wow, I have really bamboozled a lot of people into thinking I know what I'm talking about every single time.
I like the podcast sort of opportunity because it's a conversation.
Yeah,
I like leading or being on panels because I don't have to carry the whole thing.
right.
Um, I have a speaking habit because I'm a word nerd, right? Little writer boy.
Yeah.
Uh, so like trying to find the precise word too much and just kind of going while I
Hmm.
think in my head, like rolling through the thesaurus in my head looking for
Right.
it. Um, and I'm always terrified that I'll do that for about 10 minutes straight while the audience blinks at me.
Yeah, I worry about that too. There's times I get lost, like if because my wife will tell you I have what she would call hypervigilance disorder, that I will notice the zit on a gnat's ass 30 yards away and it will distract me. And so like if I'm at Expo and I'm speaking in front of 350, 400 distributors or people, if I see someone doing something that is really distracting, I like laser in on it. And it'll break my rhythm. I'm terrible at it. I remember my first time speaking at Expo, I was doing it with someone, Rick Green from Halo. This was maybe 2008. It was my first time speaking at Expo, so I was super nervous, but I was glad I had someone to do it with me. And we started talking, and someone came in late, was clearly looking for a place to sit. It was pretty packed room. Maybe it was a small room, like maybe 150 people, 200 people. And I decided that was a good time to go ahead and, hey, sir, there's some seats right over here. I just called him out, and it was. I've learned not to do that, but still, I notice like weird things, like when, and my friends know this, so they'll hold up little signs while I'm talking to try to distract me. It's fun.
Yeah, it's like I said, survival is
Yeah.
is the most important part.
Yeah. I always try to remember anytime I'm doing any sort of public speaking is that every single person in that audience wants me to succeed. They want to learn something, they want to they connect. And so that always gives me pause before I speak. Like no one really wants me to screw up. If I do, most times they won't even notice.
Can I tell you what's one of the things that's scary about speaking in our industry is, with the regionals and things, a lot of times they'll hand out sheets to the attendees like score the speakers.
Yep.
And for good or bad, I feel like you never really get the score. Sometimes the person who invited you will email you later and be like, "You did amazing," um, but I need my
Yeah.
score. I
I
want
I
the
always ask for the score. Like I do two things. When I'm there, if I see, I know what you're talking about. Usually you walk into the room and you're making sure everything's working, your PowerPoints you're working, your microphone's working, blah blah blah. But there's always somebody walking and putting down sheets before they let people in. So you see this empty row of tables and forms. I always tell people right out, I said, I want you to please fill that out and do so honestly, because it's by telling me I did great, if you didn't think I did, it's the only way I get better by being honest. And I will always tell the event organizer, I need to see those scores. I need to see the comments. I'm adamant about it.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the Rupt summer camp.
Yeah.
It sounds like the speaking is more like TED Talk style. So
Yeah.
18 minutes is easier to fill than an hour, I think.
It is, and I think it'll be real interesting. It'll be real interesting. I've never been out to that part of the world. It's in Moab, so I think there's some tickets left for distributors. You go to ruptsummercamp.com. Little plug for Jason and Mike and their group. Last thing I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if there's anything you want to talk
Mhm,
about,
mhm.
and you can tell me, Bill, I don't want to talk about this because I did not clear this with you in advance. You're about a year, maybe a little more than a year of you being very public saying, I'm taking a break from drinking. I'm not going to call it sobriety because I'm using your words. You said, I'm taking a break from drinking, taking a year off. That was, I think, what it was. You wrote very eloquently about it when you wrote your article about being part of our promocations in Cabo. And I know you were concerned about people judging you and all that. I want to ask how you feel. It's been either almost a year or right at a year. How do you feel?
Yeah, so a year would have been a year at my birthday, which was last week.
Yep.
Um, I feel well. Like
Good.
the things that you hear going in about like you're gonna feel so much better. I think for me it was more like just the absence of hangovers. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not 5 a.m. jumping out of bed anyway, but I am sleeping better.
That's good.
And I've lost some weight, and as I wrote in this either the story or when I posted it maybe on LinkedIn, like I've found energy and patience to do some things that I don't think I would have done previously. Like I'm coaching my youngest daughter's soccer team, and
Oh, that's
so
that
it's
that that is a master class in patience.
yeah. It's been a great experience.
Good.
I was glad to be able to tell that story about promocations because it's something that I observed in the industry long before I even decided to try just not drinking anymore.
Yeah.
Um, that it's a community culture, right? Where we're glad to see friends and things like that, and you got to wine and dine clients. So a lot of people probably feel compelled
Yeah.
to imbibe more than they might
Yeah.
want to. And that was the case for me. Like I felt like this is part of the job. It is
Yeah.
expected of me. And I quit and learned that it wasn't.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, I have not tried to be big. I did write the article, but I've not tried to like be over the top about it. I don't like it when people call it a journey, things like
I
that.
don't
Like,
either. I'm
so,
so over everything being called a journey, to be honest with you.
but yeah, we made it a year.
Good for you.
So
Well, it's fantastic. And like I said, I don't want to dwell on it. You're not judgy, preachy, or anything like that. One of the things I've been in the same situation where, I feel like I got to keep up with everybody, and you find yourself, man, I drank way too much last night. And so now, a lot of times, here's my secret: when I go to an event, a lot of times I'll order a vodka soda with lime, and I'll give the bartender $20, and I'll say, every time I come back here, every other time I come back here and order a vodka soda with lime, I want club soda with lime, same glass. And no one ever asks me. So I just don't even want to have the conversation because I've been there are times like I just don't feel like drinking tonight. Why aren't you drinking? Come on, man, have one. And it's like I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, there have been times even since like the new title was announced last week where somebody's like, they hadn't read the article, and so they're like,
Yeah,
we'll have a drink at NALC or this or that, and it's like, yeah,
right.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
how about a slap on the back?
right, right. All right, that's all I had. Josh, did you have anything you wanted to talk about?
I do have something for you, Billy.
Okay, okay.
So one of the things I aspire to in this industry is to be a connector in some
Yeah,
ways. I think that's one of the things you're really good at. You bring people together, add
thank
value
you.
to people that way.
Thank you.
Um, and so I get to do that on occasion, and a lot of times I'm like, I feel like Cupid, where I shot the arrow, and these two people came together, and then I just disappear, and I don't know what happened there. So like a couple of weeks ago, I introduced you to somebody who maybe could benefit from your
Yeah,
services,
yeah.
um, and didn't follow up on it with either of you. So as Cupid, I just
Yeah.
wonder like where do those like blind date sort of networking connections go? Like what does anybody
Yeah.
are you both just like kind of like nod at each other and say like, well, he's
No, that's a great
we've
question.
edified him, but like now we don't have to talk, or like what
No, it was a
happens?
great, that's a great question. Because I do, introduce a lot of people and make connections, and then I don't know where it goes. So I will answer your question. We had a great conversation. This is, without getting too detailed, it's an apparel supplier, a newer apparel supplier in the industry, and trying to make his way and forge his niche. Um, for right now, it was not an opportunity for a client work, but what a nice guy. And we ended up talking, I think, for 45 minutes. And so I, helped him as much as I could, in here. We're going to keep a dialogue open. He's in Atlanta. I'm here in Nashville. And we talked about, when he gets up here for a show, I get down there. We'd love to get together and have a meal or something like that. But I just find it twofold. This is such an industry of relationships. So any opportunity I have to bring two people together that I think is good, I like doing, and vice versa. I love to be on the receiving end of that. Some of the favorite emails I get is when somebody's thinking me like you says, "I think this would be a good conversation for you to have," because when I get those emails, I immediately think, all right, I like Josh. I trust Josh. I'm absolutely going to make time for this because that's really all it is, making time for others. And we can all sit here and say, I'm busy. And that is true. I don't know one person who's not busy. But I'm never too busy to make an introduction or be part of an introduction.
um with your work on promocations, I mean,
Yeah.
that is just a huge part of who you are, the connecting people thing.
Yeah.
So my second question is like worst promocations venues imaginable. What would be the and I'm not talking about like behind a dumpster at
Right.
the Golden Corral. I'm talking about what city or getaway like would you absolutely never do?
Cancun comes to mind. Um, I just think it's overdone. I think to me, it's just very generic. I mean, I've been to Cancun. Hell, I'm going on a vacation with a bunch of friends in June to Cancun, but it's essentially, I mean, that little resort bubble is essentially the United States. I mean, if you've ever been, Cancun comes to mind. I think um, that's the one that comes to mind. When we're plotting out Josh Robbins and I, when we're plotting out what we want to do, where we want to go, we think, where would we want to go? And there are the usual suspects, right? And I'm not going to name them because then the global you can start connecting the dots of what organization am I talking about, and I'm not going to do that. Not that you're baiting me into doing that, I just won't do it. But there are some usual places where people go. A lot of people don't go to Punta Cana. We're excited about that this year. I can tell you what we haven't, I won't tell you what we have in store for 2027, but I don't think anybody's been there from our industry. And I think those type of locations really, when people are energized about going to the location, because any of the events in our industry, the people are going to be probably really good. So the connections are there. But a lot of times the backdrop heavily influences what you take away from the event. So that would be Cancun. I'll tell you the other one that I would never ever do in promocations. New
Vegas.
Orleans.
Oh,
New Orleans. Ever. I love New Orleans, but man, we would lose everybody to Bourbon Street, to anywhere. You would lose people. That's why we like an isolated resort or a cruise ship because there's only so far you can go.
well, it's as I hope people gleaned from the article if they read it. Like it's a great event. Like it's a
Thanks.
business focused event. There's something to get out of it. It's not the frat party you might have feared. And you can go and have Heineken 0.0s all you like.
Yep, absolutely. And it's been, gosh, this is our, I think, sixth event we're going to end up doing so far. So it's been great. It's been fun. It's been awesome. And I'm glad you were part of the one in Cabo. That was an epic adventure.
Yeah, yeah. Looking forward to reconnecting here in a couple of weeks, which will be before this airs, but after we talk.
Yeah, very confusing my recording schedule these days. And before we say goodbye to our friend Josh and explain that recording schedule, let me thank our sponsor for this fine, fine broadcast. This episode of Between Two Brands has been brought to you by the good folks over at Coaster Stone, home of the original absorbent stone coaster. With that combination of stone cold quality, striking decoration, low cost per impression, retail packaging, and unmatched value, David Glenn and his team at Coaster Stone are ready to help you make a rock solid impression with your clients. Go ahead and email them at promo@coasterstone.com today. Josh, thank you again for being on the podcast. It's always great to talk to you and see you. This episode is going to drop on April 24th. Today's April 8th. I'm gonna be traveling, and that's just how shit works. So whenever you're listening to this, thank you, and Josh will have to do it again sometime.
Time is a flat circle, they say. Thank you, Mr. Bill.